Welcome to Who Wrote That Up for You, a daily podcast that shines a light on the American justice system and its role in empowering the powerful to take from you. The justice system is the only branch of your government where an individual rather than the collective can make the system act for you. It puts power in the individual's hands, but it's broken and being used against you at a time when you need it most.
And we are live on Who Wrote That Up for You. Today is Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. I am Sonia Ebron, a co founder at Courtroom 5.
And I am Deborah Sloan, the other co founder at Courtroom 5.
We've got a fantastic show lined up for you today. In a few moments, we will hear from Richard Granat, who is really one of the grandfathers in the legal tech space. Hard to imagine the development of that space without his contributions. And so we'll hear about some of the work he's done in the past and what he's got cooking right now. A little further into the show, we will speak with Mark Atkinson. He runs the Incubator for Legal Practice and Innovation here in beautiful Durham, North Carolina. And so we will hear about some of his experience and what change he wants to make in the legal space. Before we get there, though, Deborah, what is on your mind today?
I want to discuss a little bit about the challenge of being in a court case. Here on Who Wrote That Up for You, we don't want to minimize the difficulty of being in court, especially when you're up against a lawyer. It is, it's a challenge, and you're deeply involved. It's your case. You're not representing someone else, you're representing your own interest. So there's always lots of emotion around that, and we are no exceptions. But at the end of the day, you go to court because you need to be there. Either you're asserting your rights or you're defending yourself. And emotions will come up: fear, anger, and occasionally disgust at the legal system or whatever feelings you're feeling. They never disappear completely, not all of them. I'm never comfortable in court. The best I can do is do very good research, do very good writing, and be prepared as much as I can possibly be prepared. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you do that, as that you prepare in that way. That's more important than the feelings that are coming up. That those are painful, but it's more important that you be prepared and to just go in and get the work done.
That's really, really important. As you mentioned, nobody lay people particularly don't get involved in litigation willingly. We're there because we feel we have to be. This is not something that folks do easy. It's not easy work. And those emotions, you're absolutely right. If you've got a personal relationship with the case that you're managing, as all lay people must, then yeah, your emotions can really interfere with your ability to handle the case, right? So easy in all areas of life to make bad decisions when your emotions are overwhelming.
Mhm.
I tell you a trick that I use because I feel a lot of fear whenever I'm having to be in court and just dealing with, experienced litigators on the other side and that whole thing. You mentioned fear and anger as two of the primary emotions that people feel. I do my very best to emphasize the anger. Frankly, I find that it helps me mute some of the fear a little bit. I get a little aggressive, and certainly it helps with my assertiveness in court. But it helps me to just pick a target, whether it's the opposing party, often a plaintiff that's dragged me into court, or their lawyer, or the court system itself, or whatever. I pick a target and I just get mad. I allow myself to feel that emotion over the fear, right? And it tends to help me act at least a little more confident than I might be. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I think it's so important that people understand you've got to master your emotions if you're dealing with if you're managing a case on your own. Otherwise, it's really hard to get the work done. So thanks for bringing that up, Deborah. Appreciate that. Who Wrote That Up for You is sponsored by Courtroom 5. At Courtroom 5, we believe the courts belong to the people. and in particular to the people who use them. And we, the people, are coming to claim our courts. So if you're in court without a lawyer, or if you need to sue someone and can't afford a lawyer to represent you, get yourself over to courtroom5.com. Try our services for free and see if we can provide some relief for your situation. It is my great pleasure now to bring onto our podcast Richard Granat. Richard, I introduced grandfathers in the legal
Hey,
tech space. I want to just say thank you
I
so
am.
much for what you've done. Can you share?
Thanks, Tanya.
Can you share with our listeners just very briefly, because we could be here all day talking about your decades of contribution? Could you share with us just some of the areas, some of the work that you've done in your career?
Sure, sure. To give you a little bit of context, in this part of my career, I really started in 1998 when I was 58 years old, and I was actually supervising a pro se clinic at University of Maryland Law School. And while I was there, I was teaching computer technology and the law, and the faculty didn't really think that the internet was going to be important. They thought it was going to be a fad. So before I left, I created what was called the People's Law Library of Maryland, which was the first legal information website, which is today really run by the court system and gets over 1 million visitors a year. And today, almost every state has a legal information website. So the faculty wasn't interested in what I was doing, so I quit and I started a company where a bunch of activities where we were offering automated legal forms in the same way LegalZoom was. And then I created a company called Direct Law, since sold, which provided an online platform so solos and small firms could deliver legal services online. But at the same time, I created a law firm which automated all the family law firms in Maryland. It's called MD Family Lawyer, and it's highly informated. There's lots of technology on the site, and the purpose of it is to offer very low cost legal services in family law to at a fixed price to lower moderate income folks. And we've actually captured a large part of this business in Maryland. Even though I still 20 years later can't figure out why lawyers have really not adopted these concepts. And to give you an example, we do a lot of huge number of no fault divorces, and we charge $349, which is legal advice bundled with legal forms. The average price for that is still $3,000 a pop, or $4,000 a pop from a traditional lawyer, which simply really amazes me. So I'm now, to give you a context, I'm going to be 82 years old. And I'm still actively involved in running this law firm. I actually run it from Florida, and I have two paralegals up in Maryland who do a lot of the work for me. And more recently, I just started a new blog called lawproductmakers.com to help lawyers think about legal applications. Because my whole theory, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. You're involved in having people go to court. My approach is for things where they don't have to go to court. Software eats the legal industry. We can create software which does lots of routine things, which saves people a huge amounts of money. And if you go to this website, you can see, all sorts of tools that I've already created, like bots and legal advice advisories. These are recent things. In addition, we've automated every legal form, so our costs are very low. They're lower than probably any other law firm in the whole state of Maryland, which is not a small state. We still have 5 million people, and we still have get a huge volume from just these areas. And one of the things that I'm working on now that interests me is that there's not a lot of price transparency between lawyers. Like there's a new firm called The Marble Way. You may have seen advertisements for it, and it's a nationwide network of lawyers funded by an underlying technology company. And I've actually shopped them and done some comparative analysis. And in Maryland, they're still charging $4,000 for a no-fault divorce and $1,100 for what's called a quadro order, whereas we charge like $349 or $300. I mean, there's a whole major price gap. But you don't really know that when you go to their website. They say they offer fixed pricing, but their prices are not advertised. So a big problem that I see of the lack of transparency in pricing among solo and small firms. You don't really know what a fair price is or what you could really get. The only way to break through that, I suppose, with advertising through Google and Facebook to increase the information level of people. But most people today, I'm talking about consumers, are at a loss when they try and deal with the legal system. They don't know how little they can pay. They don't necessarily know about your service. It's hard for them to find services. And so I'm doing some work to try and figure out how to increase transparency, either through a website approach or an advertising approach. I see that as a big barrier because I also see that as these software applications and services like yours increase, it has the potential for really opening up access to justice, unfortunately, at the price of taking business away from law firms. The law firm industry is so archaic and so out of such a monopoly that the pricing is really out of the reach of most low and moderate income consumers. Can you imagine having to pay $4,000 for no fault divorce? I mean, that's
Uh,
ridiculous.
I
It's absurd.
cannot.
I'm sure they really capture a lot of business that way. So, my mission, and it's still there, I'm still hanging in there, is to try and figure out ways to inform the public. Even on this People's Law Library, which is now a public legal information website, they're not allowed to put kind of pricing for lawyers. There's no lawyer services on it. And if you go to these marketplaces, you never really know when you connect with a lawyer how much you're going to actually pay. If you go to our website, you'll see the pricing right there, and you'll see that everything is fixed price. And, we explain it really very clearly. And we continue to capture market share from the regular legal profession because of the niche that we operate in. And I recommend, for other lawyers who are interested in this approach to figure out ways of digitizing your practice and try and reach out to a latent market for legal services. This latent market for legal services is really huge.
Huge.
It's
Yeah,
really huge.
absolutely.
So,
That's what we're operating in as well. That is fantastic. Richard, you have made very light work for me this afternoon. Really addressed up front all of the questions that I had for you. I really, again, just want to thank you for the decades of contributions you've made. Certainly, a courtroom five couldn't exist without the examples you gave there. So, just really grateful for you, Richard. I'll put your family lawyer website up, but
yeah,
where else can people find you online?
they can find me through this website or through my blog, which is Law Product Makers. There's contact information on there. So the company that I started and since sold is called Direct Law. It's one of a number of companies that now provide a platform for the delivery of online legal services. So if lawyers are watching this, it's something they should look into. Clio also now has new tools that enable you to do this. When we started, we were the first, but now there are other companies that are out there. The future for online legal services is the future for legal services. All legal law practices are going to be digitized at some point. You won't be able to survive unless you digitize your practice. But I can't. I got to tell you, I've been doing this for 20 years. I can't believe it's been this long before the profession's really caught up. I
And
mean,
still a long way to go.
I'm off. I said this in 2000. I was head of the e-lawyering task force of the ABA, and I said in 5 years, all law practices are going to be delivering legal services online. I was only off by at least 15 years. So,
That's right. We've got some time. We've got
history of
some
my
time.
life, the history of my career, I'm always off by about 20 years. But I'm
That's
trying
all
to.
right. It,
Yeah.
it's
Anyway.
it's longevity that matters. Thank you so much, Richard.
Okay.
We'll have
Thank
you
you.
back
Thank you for
on.
having me. I appreciate it. Take
You
care
bet.
and good luck. Bye bye.
Fantastic. It's always such a pleasure to speak with Richard. And I neglected to mention that Richard is also one of the advisors, members, and donors, in fact, of the new Justice Technology Association. So just want to shout him out for that as well and say thank you. Uh, Deborah, who won yesterday's challenge and what is today's challenge?
Well, unfortunately, no one won yesterday's challenge. The question was, what are four ways you can respond to a complaint? There are a number of different answers to this, but I picked out four. One is the motion for extension of time, which a lot of people don't know about. They don't know that they can extend the time for their answer. A motion to dismiss. In some states, you can also do a demur. And then there's the answer and affirmative defenses. Again, there was no winner, so no clapping or anything today. So
That's a
tomorrow's quiz.
But before you get there, Deborah, I did want to just mention, one of the unfortunately very common responses to a complaint is to just ignore it.
Yeah,
We see so many people just taking a default judgment, and that can have severe consequences, life-altering consequences in many respects. And that it's good, I think, for people to understand, even though no one contributed these answers, that there are some a range of things that you can do to respond to a complaint, that at least you can put up a fight and maybe get a better settlement. So no,
exactly.
yeah, don't want to give legal advice, but it's good at least to have this information. So thank you for sharing that.
All right. So tomorrow's quiz, what's the difference between a motion to quash and a motion to strike? What's the difference between a motion to quash and a motion to strike? If you want to participate in the quiz, send your responses to quiz@courtroom5.com.
That's great. That one's going to be fun. And I think we have certainly some lawyers in the audience, but also some lay people. Even if you don't know it exactly, send us an answer. I want to be able to clap for people and congratulate our winners. So absolutely want to see some answers there tomorrow. At this time, I am so happy to bring on to our podcast Mark Atkinson. Mark is the director of the Incubator for legal practice and innovation here in Durham, North Carolina. Mark, welcome to Who Wrote That Up for You.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor. I had a flashback, a little bit of trauma with that civil procedure question. Please don't quiz me right now.
We you are you're a young, you're not a young man obviously, but you're a young lawyer. You've been practicing only for a couple of years, and so you are most likely to have the answers to those sorts of questions.
It does ring a bell. I do remember talking about that, but it's been it's when you don't deal with it every day, it does get a little stale. So I'm going to say it's a little stale. So forgive me, Professor Green, for not knowing at the top of my head the difference between a motion to quash and a motion to strike.
I'm going to make sure they all watch this episode. So, Mark, you spent 25 years as an engineer, working for a consulting engineering firm, a big one here in the area, prior to going to law school. So this is really a second career for you. And I know in that experience, having that experience as an engineer prior and now understanding some of the legal space, you probably find yourself asking more often than not, about the legal space. Why is that? Can't there be a better way of doing that? With your brief time in the industry, but long career, what are some of the things that you've witnessed in legal where you have to ask that question? Can't there be a better way?
Sure. Yeah. No. I've been an attorney a little over 2 years, but prior to that, as you said, I had a 25-year career in consulting. So I've been around the block, and I do scratch my head several times at why are we doing it this way? And your previous guest touched on some of these things. He used the word archaic, and the way I phrased it when I was in law school and since then is that oftentimes I feel like the legal profession is stuck in the 19th century. Stuck in the 19th century in terms of its language, some of its processes, and it hasn't been brought up to the 21st century, whether it's e-filing or embrace of technology. Many court systems still use a fax machine, and the only people that I know that still require fax machines are some court systems in the IRS, and I can't explain the IRS. I had to submit something to the IRS by fax about a month or two ago, and I couldn't believe it's still being required, but they would only accept it by fax. So yeah, there's the lack of embracing technology that this is the 21st century. Why can't the legal system? And there's other matters too that just seem stuck in the 19th century in terms of, I would imagine this group has or will talk about limited licensed professionals and just how that can help improve access to justice at a more affordable rate, where paralegals and legal assistants have been limited in what they can do, to the detriment of attorneys and to the detriment of the public. And that's a head scratcher to me. And one thing that really baffles me, in my prior career, I was a professional engineer. So I was a licensed engineer. I had to take an exam. I had a certificate. I was a professional engineer. And engineering firms, we had codes of conduct as engineers for the good of the public. And an engineering firm could be owned by anybody. It wasn't restricted to just engineers. So we had business professionals, we had IT professionals, we had accounting professionals, and engineers who were owners of the firm that I worked for. And it was to the benefit of the firm, and I believe to the benefit of its employees and the benefit of the public, that we had that wealth of knowledge leading the firm, guiding the firm. And I think in the legal profession, I think we hurt ourselves as attorneys when we limit ownership. That's something the public may not really know, but behind the scenes, I'm coming at it as an attorney. I think we hurt ourselves when we don't open up ownership to non-attorneys, accounting professionals, IT professionals, business professionals. It'll be a better run business. It'll be a better public service when attorneys allow that ownership stake in their firm. Now, some of my peers would argue against that and say, and I'll listen and I'll smile and I'll just say, I think you're mistaken. So those are just some things. I'm getting on my soapbox, but those are some things that just immediately struck me as a head scratcher,
Yeah.
and that limit people's ability to get solutions to have their legal problems solved.
That's right. That's right. And as you know, we would need change in the model rules, changes in the rules nationwide. Each state has its own rules, but they're very similar about law firm ownership and some other restrictions that sort of stifle innovation, at least in my opinion. And I should share with the audience that your incubator is one of our partners, helping us be able to access legal services for our customers. You know, in an ideal world, Courtroom 5 would simply hire lawyers to deliver those services. But it's those same rules that you highlight there that prevent us from doing that. So we're very happy to find organizations like yours to work through. Let me ask you then, given that context of the probably dozens of things we could point to that need to change in the legal profession, where's your energy focused on these days in terms of changing some of these things?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Given the host of problems, there's a lot of places where I could focus, but what I've chosen to focus in, midway through law school, about 3.5 years ago, I came across this idea of a legal incubator. And it was basically, the idea is an incubator that helps attorneys start financially sustainable practices that improve access to justice. And so that's what I've invested my time and energy into, is creating this nonprofit, the Incubator for Legal Practice and Innovation, where I am right now I've got a cohort of 8 attorneys that are early on in launching their own law firm, their law firm as a business. They want to make a living. They have bills to pay. They have kids to get through school. They have rent or a mortgage to pay. They also want to make an impact in their community to help people with legal problems. And they want to do it in a way that's affordable to people. There was a mention about the latent legal market. There are plenty of attorneys that serve the high income folks of this country. There's no lack of attorneys for that. There's a few attorneys that valiantly serve lower income legal aid, and they need more help. There's a big modest means, middle income folks that, with the right kind of pricing, Richard talked about transparent pricing, and there's enough of a market there where attorneys, I believe, can do well, make a living, and do good in the process. And so the incubator is very much focused on the business side of running a legal practice to help those attorneys that want to make a social impact for good, help them figure out a way to price, to market, to have the right accounting systems in place, to have the right client intake that's client-centric and helping the client in the process, so that they can make a living and do good in the process. So that's what, and it requires some innovation. It requires the use of technology. It requires the use of being client-centric and empathetic and partnering with organizations like Courtroom 5 to make the most sense. How can we best serve the client? What can the client do themselves? What do they need an attorney for? And how to do that in a smart way. So that's what the incubator is all about. And that's where I've been focusing my energy over the last 2 years.
Extraordinary, extraordinary. You know, with you in Durham and Courtroom 5 in Durham and the North Carolina Central University School of Law and all the innovation they've got going on, we're going to put the city on the map on access to justice. We are going to solve this problem, I have no doubt. Mark, where can folks find you online? I'm going to share your website, your incubator's website.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, innovationlegal.org, that's the website, and simply mark@innovationlegal.org is my email. So I'm not big on TikTok and Instagram. I'm not cool enough for that. So an email or that website's the best way to do it.
Fantastic. Mark, we'll have you back on soon. We've got a lot. I know you've got a lot cooking. And so we'll be happy to stay in touch and share what we are both doing here in Durham. Thank you so much for joining Who Wrote That Up for You.
Great. Thanks.
All right. You know, Deborah, we have such exciting conversations, I think. But what we've shared, I think, today with Richard Granat's deep history and background in legal tech, and Mark, a young attorney, taking it from there and really benefiting, as many of us do, from Richard's work in the past and the current. You know, I think we have got to understand that some change is being made in the legal practice and in access to justice as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that they both kind of touched a little bit on UPL, unlicensed practice of law, in terms of what is allowed and what is not allowed. And I think at some future date, I'll have that as a big issue, the UPL thing, because it's, lawyers really, there's only so much they can do within the law to help people. And it's, and people who aren't lawyers, there's only so much they can do to help people. And that's unfortunate.
Yep, we are going to make a change for sure. All right, that's all we have for you today. As always, we'll see you on Who Wrote That Up for You tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining us.
Are you feeling beleaguered, angry, or afraid, as if things are spinning out of control and you're powerless to stop them? It's easy to just let things slide and hope they don't get worse. But they often do get worse. The thing is, you're not powerless. Our courts belong to us, and their purpose is to give power to the powerless. Don't let your grievances pile up without redressing them. You can handle this in court. Or, if someone takes you to court, you can take them to school.